Have a PowerPoint that we'd like to present. And first of all, I'd like to have Miss Gerard, Miss Patty Gerard. She's the headmaster, the director of LearningGate, explain the LearningGate concept, and then I'll finish up. There it is.
Patty Gerard, 16215 Hannah Road, Lutz, Florida, 33549.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. The mission of the Gates Junior Senior High School is to graduate students with the skills necessary to successfully compete in a global economy. By using the surrounding environment as a framework, students construct their own learning using proven educational practices. It's very critical in our mission statement, the part about the surrounding environment as a framework. And as we go along in our presentation, you will see why this property is so important for the school. Where'd you go? That one? Okay. These principles that we have listed here are to be considered within the context of a rigorous academic standards. LearningGate Community School, which is the sister school and will be the feeder school for this high school, is already located in Lutz, and it is considered a high-performing school with the state of Florida. What our guiding principles are the global awareness, and this is to provide community service opportunities nationally and internationally that teach respect for diversity and promotes goodwill. Arts and inventive thinking provide educational opportunities that encourage creativity, innovation, and problem solving through projects in the arts. Technology to provide and support exceptional IT infrastructure, tools, and services that facilitate effective use of technology by the faculty and the students in support of teaching. And environmental sustainability to provide opportunities for relationships and interactions that encourage respect and shared responsibility for the environment and prepare students who have the knowledge, skills, and commitment to work individually and collectively towards solutions of current problems and the prevention of new ones. Whoops, we lost a slide. Did we lose a slide? No, go back. Maybe it's somewhere else. Oh, well, anyway, we'll pass that. Why this site? One of them is because we do have a positive relationship with the Lutz community. We've participated. We've had some governors. I think we've had 3 governors from our, and that's how they say it, governor, from our school.
What does that mean?
Governor.
What do you?
I don't. It's a honorary type of thing that they have every year. They have somebody. We've participated in Relay for Life. We've been in the parades, and we participated within the community. Also, during this process, we have held 3 meetings at the school for the neighborhood to talk about and listen to their concerns and to work with that group. We've also worked individually with I think we've met 4 times, maybe 5, with a couple of representatives who brought some conditions to us, which we worked with them. Some of those conditions are in our proposal. Some of them cannot be in the proposal, but they're something that we have agreed upon, and that's something that we will honor. There's a proximity to LearningGate, our present school. There's a diverse land of freshwater marshes, open lakes, and forested uplands. There's also a diverse wildlife population. There's a connectivity to Nye Park. One of the things that we're hoping to do is to maybe reach an agreement with the county parks in order to keep Nye Park open, because I understand it's going to be closed because of funding. And we would be happy to keep that park up in lieu of us allowing us to use that during school for our PE fields and such. And then it would still be open in the evenings for the community. A large amount of the acreage is mostly in a conservation easement. And we want ability to put nature trails for the public. We've talked about a possible place for the Lutz Historical Museum if that was something that they would be interested in. And the hands-on learning, the environment to teach sustainability. We consider the property as our first and most important classroom. We consider this above everything else that has made LearningGate as successful as it is, because the children actually get to be out there and to see what happens on a first-name basis.
We have 11 minutes.
I have 11 minutes. Okay. I'll go quickly then. We anticipate a net zero design with a very low carbon footprint. We're very familiar with all of this since we have received on the other property LEED platinum status for our buildings. We were also just awarded a National Green Ribbon Award from Washington, D.C. So I'll skip some of these things. The principles for our design: to plan, design, and build a campus that's gentle on the land, the animals, and the natural resources. To build a facility that is supportive of our beliefs in the sustainability of our planet and will be a teaching tool for our students, parents, visitors, and benefactors. Create an energizing environment that excites, motivates, and maintains a sense of wonder. Create a learning environment that supports project-based learning and collaboration. And design a variety of spaces that to support a wide range of activities, learning modalities, and opportunities. Okay, let's skip some of this. This is just a little bit more about a net zero building and what that means and what we'll be doing. This is a plan of one of the learning communities. The building will not be a typical high school. We're set up in small, what we call learning communities. And these are just some of the proposals that we may be doing so that we have, okay, that's okay, that we'll be using as classrooms. And I think the rest is your job,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. Again, I'm Kevin Manera, planner with the Genesis Group, and I'd like to just kind of walk you through the site and the plan. The site's located north of Sunset and east of US 41. It's about 62 acres in site. It's heavily forested, got quite a few wetlands on the site. Simply put, LearningGate is a unique school. It's the only one of its kind in Hillsborough County, and it's probably one of the very few in Florida. And because it is so unique, it requires a unique piece of property, and that's why they like this site so much. The Gates concept heavily immerses their students in all aspects of environmental science and stewardship, and the proposed heavily forested parcel, it's a parcel in yellow, will provide the ideal learning environment for them to continue their nationally recognized environmental program. This is the site plan. Oops, I'm sorry, go back for a second. The project is compatible with its surroundings. Lutz Elementary School is directly to the north. There's a private school to the south. Nye Park is right here. There's a variety of commercial on US 41. US 41 is a 6-lane arterial. And that's our main access. This is a copy of our site plan. Our main access was proposed to be off of US 41. Most of the property will remain in a natural state.
Could you slide that site plan up a little bit?
You've got a...
Yes, but for the audience, if you don't mind.
Actually, I do not know how to do that.
If I could ask ATV to move the closed caption, either remove it or move it up on top there.
Oh, thank you.
There, that's
Okay.
better.
Okay, thank you. Most of the property will remain in a natural state, and large buffers, a minimum of 50 feet and 100 feet, will be proposed where adjacent to any existing residential development. That's the minimum. Many places the buffer is far more than 100 feet. The cross-hatched areas and the speckled areas on the site plan are all the areas that will remain in a natural state. Okay, so a majority of the site will remain in a natural state. Along the lake, the building setbacks are 150 feet from the lake shore. That's 3 times the setback required by code. The main access, again, is by US 41, eliminating stacking and access issues, and the start and the end times with classes will be staggered to eliminate impacts during the AM and the PM rush hours. The school will be bound by a traffic circulation plan approved and monitored by the county to control the hours of operation and student drop-off and pickup times. This is another copy of the aerial showing just how vegetated it is. These are the wetlands on the site. A vast majority of the wetlands we are preserving. There's some few small impacts that we're doing based on negotiations with the neighbors. And that's shown here on the conceptual plan. What this conceptual plan shows is the main axis off of US 41. All the buildings will be up here. They're 1 and 2 stories in size. They're set back a great distance from any non-school use. We have huge buffers on all sides. A vast majority, unlike conventional schools, there will be no school stadiums and no evening sports activities, so there will be little or no activity during evening hours. Many of the buildings will have open porches and decks promoting the open-air teaching environment. And in fact, about a year or so ago, they were actually featured in a Southern Living magazine on open-air schools. It's a very, very, very unique school, one of a kind. The goal is for all the buildings to achieve gold or platinum status similar to the existing Learning Gate facility. This is the site plan we submitted to the EPC. A vast majority of the wetlands on site will be left in their natural state, except for a few small impacts. That's to get our road from US 41 and set it back from the neighbors. This access road will be a minimum of 100 feet from the nearest residence off-site. The last site, and this is a very important site, this school over and over again, year after year after year, consistently wins award after award after award. They got a Green Ribbon School from the U.S. They're a Florida Green School Award winner. They're the first public charter school in the nation to receive LEED status, platinum status for their buildings. Every year, they've been a grade A school. They won 3 awards with the Planning Commission Community Design Awards. And I like this last one. They got a recycling award for collecting the most pounds for the elementary school. That's for their existing facility. It's an extremely green school, very unique. And actually, in conclusion, this is an asset to Hillsborough County. It's one of a kind. They picked this site special because it is so unique, so lush, so green. Of all the people that can develop on this property, these people are the most sensitive. And if you're interested, I've given you copies of the PowerPoint as well as a site plan. www.learninggate.org. If you want to surf their website, you can see dozens and dozens and dozens of awards year after year after year after year. They're constantly a good steward, one of the best schools in Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Mr. Munir, regarding your access to 41, how do you get there? Do you have
Yes, we do.
agreement with the adjacent property?
We most certainly do, and that legal access agreement easement language is actually included on the site plan. Yes, we have that approved.
I think I saw the legal description for the pathway, but you have an easement.
Yes. Well, we will record that, subject to us getting approved, we will record that access easement across that gentleman's property to get to the site. That's a requirement of our zoning. So without that connection, we don't go forward. And we've been in negotiations with that property owner. He's in full agreement, full support. Sure. Okay. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is John Gibbons. I'm an attorney with Saxon Gilmore firm here in Tampa, 201 East Kennedy Boulevard, 33602. The owners of this property also own the property. The owners of the property that's going to be developed for the school, assuming you approve it, also owns the frontage on 41. It's the Weekly family, and we have the property under contract and also have an agreement with them as part of that contract for an easement out to 41 as shown on the site plan.
Okay. And what's the width, if you know?
I believe that it's 50 feet.
50 feet wide? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
As opposed to elementary or a middle school with a high school, I suspect that a fair number of kids that are 16 years old and older may drive to the site. And so anticipation of that fact, probably, because most high schools have larger parking lots for accommodate kids that drive to school and park there. Your site plan, your conceptual one, does it, when you laid it out in terms of where the buildings go, where your access road goes, do you incorporate a large parking lot?
Yes, sir. The school encourages carpooling, but bottom line is we will have enough parking for the students that will use this school. I mean, we've set it all out. That's what the conceptual plan here is to show.
I know it's a conceptual site plan, and I appreciate you providing one tonight for tonight's hearing. But do you know generally what the size of that parking lot is?
No, I can measure that. I can probably get that number for you. But
Land Development Code talks about for high schools 0.33 spaces per student. So I saw that 1,000 kids was the maximum number of kids for the school.
Mm-hmm.
So how many are middle school and how many of them are high school?
Angel, do you mind answering that?
Angel Bendez, Imperium Development, 13713 West Sunrise Boulevard, Sunrise, Florida, 33323.
Mm-hmm.
The parking lot was designed based on about 500 high school students, and it is parking new code.
500 high school? Okay, and testimony by the representative was about staggered hours. What does that mean?
What we've done is we've staggered every 15 minutes. We have different grades coming into the school, and the staggered hours are outside of the peaks. So after 8 o'clock, between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, every 15 minutes, we have a certain amount of students coming in based on their grade. And in the PM peak, we've staggered the same thing, dismissal times. Between, I think it's 3:45 and 4:45, we've staggered the times for the students every 15 minutes to leave the school. So we're basically avoiding all the peak, rush hour traffic. And I've staggered so that the volumes are minimized in 15-minute increments.
So class is dismissed for 10th grade at a certain point in time, and 15 minutes later, the 11th grade students are dismissed.
That's correct.
And then the 12th grade students are dismissed 15 minutes after that,
That's correct.
and so on.
And so on. Yes.
From middle school all the way through 12.
Mm-hmm.
And that's done in the morning, and then that's done at, what time does school end, roughly?
It's either it's between 3:30 and 4:30 or 3:45, 4:45. We're just trying to stay outside the peak hours.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, and in terms of queuing for middle school kids and kids up to 16 and those who don't have cars that can't drive independently to the property?
Yeah, if you look at the site plan that you have in front of you, there's sufficient throw length. I mean, you can stagger around the circle. We've worked on a plan, a traffic flow plan for the school. We have a drop-off area, and there's plenty of stacking on site that you would never be on Sunset or 41 backing up based on the queue.
Okay, in terms of flow, I mean, if you've got the conceptual site plan, if you can sort of walk me around how the circulation would work. Maybe use the Elmo and sort of trace how cars come in, how they drop off, and how they leave the site.
So what you see above is the traffic flow plan.
Perhaps Mr. Henry could assist you.
Good afternoon, Steve Henry, Links and Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. This is the actual, as you saw in the zoning conditions, there's a requirement to have a circulation plan. This actually, excuse me, has been submitted. It's a conceptual, but this will be actually formalized during the approval process. But this kind of gives you an idea of the actual circulation and how it will work. You've got the access, as Mr. Manier had said, on US 41, and it's got the driveway that runs up to here. You then...
Is it a two-way street?
It's a two-way, yes.
Okay.
So it allows both in and out. You come here, you'll then turn right and go around the circle, and the drop-off is at this point right here. If you come in from Sunset, you come in here, you turn right, and you come around the circle and drop off. And then as you're leaving, if you want to go back to 41, you drop off, you continue this way. If you want to go to Sunset, you come down here and drop off.
Okay.
And so this, the distances more than provide sufficient queuing for both people coming in from US 41 and from Sunset. In addition to that, we're also putting left turn lane on Sunset into the site and right turn lane on Sunset into the site. So not only do we have enough queuing on site to accommodate that, but we also have turn lanes on Sunset to get the traffic out of the through lanes.
Okay. If you've looked at this and taken a look at project traffic distribution, do you generally know from which direction cars are coming and which direction cars are going? Any AM and PM, what percent of cars will use 41, what percent of cars will use Sunset Lane?
Well, we generally looked at the current enrollment at the Learning Gate today, and then kind of use that in population areas and to estimate what that distribution may be. Obviously, it's an estimate, and what we were looking at is about 25% of the students would be to and from the east, about 35% to and from the north, and about 40% to and from the south. And then based on that, then we look at the distribution as to whether they use the US 41 access, the Sunset access, and sizing the turn lanes accordingly.
Okay. And your eastbound and northbound turn lane on Sunset Lane is a sufficient length to accommodate anticipated traffic turning into the property?
The length is not long enough, but what is when it queues, and we've monitored this during the AM peak hour, that the queue actually does clear every cycle. The turn lane, because of constraints of right-of-way, and you've got the TECO substation there, that turn lane is not long enough to accommodate the full queue as you'd normally have. But the queue does clear every cycle from that standpoint. So we've looked at that. And one of the things that was mentioned earlier, and I'll be glad to show you, get that table. What we have done to help mitigate the impact of the project is based on the counts out there that the AM peak hour occurs from 7:15 to 8:15. That's the peak hour of the intersection of US 41 and Sunset. If you'll see here, the 12th grade is arriving at 8:15. And then what we've done is, in addition to not only getting those people out of the peak hour, we have also staggered the hours so that every grade becomes a 15-minute period. So what we've done is we've spread that out over an hour. As a normal school, if we're at 8:15, everybody gets there 15 minutes prior to. What this does is it spreads it out over that hour and also outside the peak hour. And in addition, the PM peak hour occurs from 5 to 6. So what we've done there is, when you look at the dismissals, they start at 3:45, they end at 4:30. So what we've done is been able to take the school and take it, both the arrivals and dismissals, outside the peak hours. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question about the process of the school, about the day you start construction, How many children do you anticipate to have in the beginning? And as the school grows, how many children do you think you'll have? I know you've asked for a maximum of 1,000 children, but how do you get there?
Right. When we first occupy the site, there will be 350 children there. Approximately, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Anyway, we won't get to full capacity till probably 5 or 6 years, because we'll only grow. We won't add to our graduating class. It will just move on. So actually, the first year that we're there, we will not have any 12th graders. And the second year that we're there, we won't have more than 25, because we have about that many in our 9th grade now.
Okay.
Another point too, with our kids that can drive in 11th and 12th grade, we will also be having internships. So probably 20 to 25% of our kids will be off campus every day, one of those days. Won't be the same, but it'll be staggered within that. And they'll be off for the whole day, so they won't even be on property.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Manier, does that conclude your application testimony in chief?
Yes, sir. Just one last point. The great thing about this project is it's got the best of both a public school and a private school. It's a fully approved charter school that is approved and validated by Hillsborough County School, as well as school system, as well as the state, feds, whatever. It's a private school also, and Miss Patty is the principal, and she can control when things happen. So it's not like a public school where it's kind of just out there. And the best thing is no stadiums. It's a high school, probably the first high school with no stadium. And so there is no evening impacts like one would normally expect with a high school stadium.
There's testimony I heard earlier about Nye Park. Could you clarify that? I know you showed on the site plan you're showing pedestrian cross-access. I mean, I understand the no stadium issue, but in terms of exercise for kids, are you hoping to have that park available for at least playground activities?
Yes. Mainly we want to use that for our, if we have physical education, which might be soccer, baseball, there's basketball courts, and, we would love to be able to refurbish it and keep it up for the county so they can use it.
All right, thank you, ma'am. At this point in time, Development Services staff.
Thank you. Good evening. Isabel Albert, Development Services. This request is to allow a middle and high charter school for the Learning Gates Academy with a maximum of 1,000 students. The school will have a concentration in arts, agriculture, environmental studies, and science. Approximately a third of the site is comprised of wetlands, and the characteristics of the site were attractive to the academy due to their teaching curriculum. The applicant is proposing to have the educational buildings north of the roundabout that's found on the site plan, where each would be a maximum of approximately 25,000 square feet. And each building would be used for different use, ranging from an art studio, agricultural and animal barns, greenhouse, field house, schoolrooms, and administrative offices. One structure is proposed south of the roundabout. This site does not include a sports field, and the maximum square footage being proposed is 180,000 square feet with a floor area ratio of 0.11. The site plan shows wetland impacts. However, EPC reviewed the request and met with the applicant prior to the special use application submission. Per the EPC comment sheet dated April 20th, 2012, the Director of EPC has conceptually authorized these impacts. The site will be accessed by two accesses. One is being proposed on U.S. Highway 41, and neither transportation staff nor Florida Department of Transportation staff have any objections. The U.S. Highway 41 currently has a southbound left turn lane to the site. The other access is being proposed on Sunset Lake. Operational and safety improvements will be required for the Sunset Lane access. Without these improvements, impact from this development will cause Sunset Lake to continue to operate at an unacceptable level of service and be unsafe. Transportation staff, Charles White, will be available if you have any questions regarding the transportation clarifications. Tampa Bay Water Agency had no objection. Their report indicated that the western portion of the site is located within the Northwest Hillsborough Wellhead Resource Protection Area, Zone 2. And I do have here a map, so it would be easier for me to explain where it is located.
Sure.
Thank you. And Tampa Bay Water did recommend that the site be served with public wastewater services. If not, septic tank systems should be constructed outside of this area. And I've attempted to just sort of draw where the school is going to be located with the access. And the majority of the buildings proposed from the plan is located on this area that's outside of the area. And I'll leave this for you for your review.
Okay, thank you.
The applicant did propose some conditions that were discussed and negotiated with the surrounding neighbors. Staff reviewed these conditions and found that not all were zoning conditions, nor could they be enforced through the special use approval. The ones that could be incorporated were included. Other proposed conditions were with regards with site development. The site shall be developed per the Land Development Code requirement, and waivers to these requirements, if requested, shall be done so in a separate process. Staff does find this request to be consistent and compatible with the area, and we do find this approvable subject to these conditions. Thank you.
With regard to the conditions that are proposed, condition number 2, if I can get you to take a look at that condition.
Condition number 2 that were proposed and not in my staff report?
Recommended condition that's in your staff report. Condition number 2.
The buffering and screening.
Yes, you talk about which provides the bottom part of that condition, which provides enhanced buffers and landscaping around Sunward Lake Place subdivision.
Correct. That is found on the site plan. I think they go into the...
That's the subdivision that the site surrounds.
Correct. Let me
Correct.
show you one moment, please. This one right here, and the site plan shows this potential enhanced landscaping proposed here.
Okay, you're talking about that
And then there's
area?
the whole area also, that's the hatched area. It's all going to be remained in the natural state.
Okay.
Usually a school like that, the code requires, a 10-foot buffer with a type A screening. They're proposing approximately at least 50 feet and some in 100 feet.
Okay. And it's also additional, at least setback or buffer area or natural area being maintained in additional locations around the perimeter of the site?
Everywhere where it shows that hatch is where they're proposing it. They're proposing it here, around the residence, along the lake frontage. That was a negotiation with the neighbors along the lake frontage. And then around here as well, which is where the residents are here. But this is the wetland areas. And then here. So you will find it mostly around the surrounding the property.
Okay. All right. And then switching gears a little bit, condition number 6. If I get you to take a look at that condition.
Yes.
Okay, the applicant shall be permitted one access to US 41. I would suggest that that would may be a requirement. The applicant shall be required to have access to US 41.
Yes, I mean, they do need that access.
Okay.
So I could change that.
All right, and somehow I'd like to, if we could, in condition number 6, incorporate a statement about that the applicant will have to provide proof of an easement access agreement with the adjacent property owner.
Okay.
And describe the width of the service drive or driveway into the school. Applicant's testimony was that it was 50 feet.
So just proof of that they have an access easement and the description of the width.
Right.
I would like to make sure that they can provide that information to me. 'Cause
Yes, absolutely.
it seems that
Okay.
they can confirm.
All right. That's all I have at this point in time. Thank
Right,
you.
Thank you.
All right, Planning Commission staff?
Marcy Stenmark, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located within both the Residential 2 and Residential 6 future land use categories. It's also within the rural area and the Lutz Community Plan boundary. The proposed use of a school is allowable within the Residential 2 and Residential 6 future land use categories. The submitted site plan provides for development that is sensitive to surrounding residential uses. Buildings are placed internal to the subject site, and there's a cap on the maximum square footage of each individual building. The submitted site plan has also provided additional buffering and screening above code minimums and has allowed for a lot of land to be left in its natural state. To gain access to U.S. Highway 41, it has been noted for the record tonight that the applicant is proposing it's going to impact some wetlands, basically, and the applicant has worked with the EPC to get conceptual authorization. Final authorization would have to be provided in order for that to occur. The submitted site plan provides for pedestrian access to adjacent Nye Park, and pedestrian connection points between parks and schools are encouraged by the comprehensive plan. Though the applicant is proposing a private middle and high school, the applicant has provided for a site plan that offers access to a 4-lane roadway, which is supported by the Lutz Community Plan. Based on these considerations, Planning Commission staff found the proposed special use consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan, subject to the conditions proposed by Development Services.
Okay, thank you. At this point in time, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in support of the application? Yep, please come forward. Ma'am, you're the first in line, so you get to speak first.
I've never done this before, so this is new
Okay.
to me. My name is Yvette Robitelli, and I live on Yoakum Avenue on one of the bordering streets. I'd like to thank you, and I'm going to read this so I don't lose track. I'd like to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak in favor of Learning Gate Charter School. My husband, 5 children, and I moved into the Yoakum neighborhood in 2003. The biggest reason we selected this neighborhood was for Nye Park, the canal behind our house that led to a small lake, and the woods across the street. For the past 9 years, our family has enjoyed the park and the canal, but we have also enjoyed taking walks in the woods. Over the years, my husband, children, and I have helped to keep the woods clean by collecting trash left by others. Most of our children are grown now, and it's going to become more difficult for my husband and me to continue to keep the woods clean for the wildlife and others who enjoy the serenity of nature. I would be honored to have Learning Gate Charter School build their nature-friendly facility on this property. This school promotes social and cultural responsibility, and the students who attend are not typical teenagers who are interested in football games, cheerleading, marching band, and drag racing. The students who attend Learning Gate are focused on science and learning. They will keep the property clean and in harmony with the beautiful woods in the Lutz tradition. My concern is that if this school is prohibited from building, a developer will come in and subdivide the plot of land. This will destroy the natural habitat, which is the reason most of us moved here in the first place. My neighbors have expressed concerns about the increased traffic. Yes, there will be increased traffic, but it will be mostly on Highway 41, which can manage the volume. Additionally, it will only be twice a day for approximately 30 to 45 minutes for 10 months out of the year. This school will not have evening ball games or programs, with the odd exception of conference night a few times per year. My neighbors have also expressed concerns about the wetlands. I know that flows can be diverted to mitigate the issues. I also know that developers with deep pockets will pay much less attention to the needs of the wetlands than the nature-minded folks with Learning Gate. You already know about the awards this school has worked hard to earn to prove that they respect the environment. I do not know very many builders who would go to that extreme to work with nature as this school will do. My neighbors have mentioned that they are concerned that the students will skip school and prize their houses. I cannot say this will not happen, but I will say the chances of it happening are very small considering the type of students that this school attracts. Parents who send their children to Learning Gate are required to volunteer in the school. It is not an option. The parents of these children are upstanding citizens and take great care and concern with their children as evidence of sending them to this charter school and making the deep commitment to driving them to and from school each day and devoting time to the school and their child's education. I have an additional concern that if the school is disallowed, Lutz will end up with another eyesore of partially developed area like the piece of land on Livingston and Max Smith Road. This Livingston property was denied a school site and was sold for single-family homes. That property now sits empty with infrastructure and weeds. I would hope the people of Lutz could learn from prior error in judgment. Learning Gate is like no other in the state, and it attracts the best of the best when it comes to the environment. There are no guarantees in this world, but there are successive approximations to excellence, and this school attracts and promotes environmental excellence and civic responsibility. In my opinion, the benefits of the school outweigh the liabilities. I would be delighted to live across the street from Learning Gate Charter School and will be able to purchase organic vegetables and eggs as a result of their learning efforts. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, you need to sign in. Ma'am, you need to sign in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, next, please.
Good evening. Jay Muffley, 102 5th Avenue Southeast, beautiful downtown Lutz. I'm on the board of Lutz Civic Association. We do find this application approvable, but we have severe concerns about proper drainage of the wetlands, because if the road is not constructed properly and all the proper drainage is not provided and the connections are not provided, the neighbors and Sunset Lane will flood. They have in the past and they will again. Transportation says that they require a road to be above a certain level above the high water, but you have to have good flow, and we have seen examples in Lutz before where roads have been constructed without the proper flow underneath them. The other major concern that we have is with Sunset Lane. We ask that they severely restrict the number of people going in and out of the access on Sunset Lane and use US 41. Lutz Elementary School I live next door to Lutz Elementary School, so I'm going to switch. I'm going to get off of LCA now and speak for Jay Muffley. I live next door to Lutz Elementary School. Their traffic backs up 4 blocks. They have over 750 students, and transportation has assured me that this roadway will accept their stacking. But I do like the idea that they're going to stack their hours. Lutz Elementary is done by 10 after 8.
Okay.
In the afternoon, they're done at 2:15. So that's just a footnote.
Right.
Thank you.
Right, got it. Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Ron Stoy, 907 Tomlinson Drive in Lutz. It's about a 1/4 mile east of the proposed entrance. I've lived there for 33 years and feel like I know my community quite well in that area. Previously have been a board member of the Civic Association back when things were necessary for a huge amount of the population of the community to get involved. That being when the Hillsborough County School Board first wanted to propose a high school in Lutz back in '95. My purpose today, I'm no longer a board member, I still am a member of the Civic Association. I'd really just like to offer a continuity here. As I said, the school board wanted to put what I'll call a mega school, 25 to 3,000 student school, 80 acres with stadiums, et cetera, on one of our back roads. And this just didn't set well with the people of Lutz. And we filled auditorium after auditorium, and this room countless nights for many years as we hashed this through and finally got the school board to work with the planning commission as far as siting schools. The rule was that the school board could put it anywhere, anytime it felt like it, and then everybody else had to provide schools and infrastructure, or excuse me, roads and infrastructure and the whole deal. Now it's all by plan. Well, the Civic Association, which really was reborn because of this concern, didn't want to be the anti-high school group. So at that time, we put together our own vision of what a high school should be in Lutz, given the unique nature of our community, being that we are an alternative lifestyle to the rest of the county in many ways. And the Civic Association members voted unanimously to support that alternate vision for a high school. Ultimately, that language found itself embodied in our Lutz Community Plan. That plan is now 10 years old, or 10 plus years old. It's been renewed with very little fanfare, and it's been widely accepted as a good document. Many of us in the Civic Association have met with Patty and group, and one of the overriding absolutes that we said we must have in order to have our support was access off of 41. That was primary access, and then knowing that any school like this requires 2 entrances, being that Sunset Lane is the only corridor or feeder road, there's really no alternative. You can't put it on any of the other roads, so it has to be there, and they're both right there. But, you know, the concern is, you know, exactly what does primary and secondary mean as far as percentages? You know, once this thing gets rolling, does it mean that as water flows, that anybody's going to be able to go wherever they want at any time? And that's really a very strong concern moving forward. So I'll defer on the environmental issue, but I really do want to stay focused on this traffic issue, particularly on Sunset Lane. I feel strongly that the amount of usage of this entrance on Sunset has to be quantified. It has to be measurable in sense of X number of passes or X number of parking spots that are allowed that way, and ultimately it has to be enforceable. And the enforcement should not should not be the onus of the community, but rather needs to remain with the school. So if we can effectively control and limit, measure, enforce the access off of Sunset, I think we've got a really good situation here, and it would certainly meet my support. If not, however, if the language about access off of Sunset remains nebulous, it would lose my support. So this, to me, is the key. What's going to happen on Sunset Lane? How do we measure who comes and goes, when how many, how often, et cetera? So that's
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good afternoon. Kaylor Mackless.
And I'm Shay Mackless, his brother.
2141 Flameflower Court, Trinity, Florida, 34655. I'm not sure if you've noticed already, but Gates is not a regular school. My brother and I live in Pasco County. We don't even live in Hillsborough, but we really do enjoy Gates. We went to a charter school in Pasco County for a year, and there was something about it that we didn't like. Our parents are very strict, actually, about where we go, and even that charter school was not good enough. When we found Learning Gate, we were just so impressed. The eco-friendliness of it all, and It really was just a dream come true rather than homeschooling or virtual school. But in my 8th grade and Shay's 7th grade, when they made PBL, this fun, interactive, innovative way of learning and pretty much teaching yourself. I'm sure you know what Epcot is, but it's pretty much doing that in a school, learning, and you can really do whatever you want with it. And with that, it has just been wonderful. Now I am in 9th grade in Gates, and at first, we didn't think they were going to make a high school. They were kind of iffy about it, and I was just going to go to virtual school because there really was no other possible opportunity for me to stay out of the 3 big things that I'm not allowed to get near: drugs, fights, and sex. Many high schools seem to have that pattern. Like Gaither, many people might be thinking that another Gaither is being put out. Well, the closest thing we have to drugs in Gates are people sneaking in little cups of coffee. The closest thing we have to fights is the occasional arm wrestle, which I'm not pretty bad at. And the closest thing we have to sex is really just a occasional high five here and there. And really, because of that, I am allowed to stay at a friendly and eco-friendly school where there are so many possibilities that could happen.
Yes, that was well put, Kaylor. I'd just like to add on to that. Learning Gate, it's a bit different. It's quite the community that you wouldn't expect from a high school, and there's just a certain aspect to it of interacting with the teachers, the class size, the students. You know, it all fits together nicely, and it's something that you don't see from many high schools. Or I mean, that's what I know. I mean, I've been going to Gates for 3 years now, and I loved every minute of it. And I know a lot of my friends; they feel the same way, and I just can't describe it. But the teachers there, they just know how to work with you, and the students, they work back well with the teachers, and it creates this community that just works really well. And it's a beautiful thing because you're learning things and you're having fun. And this new site looks like it'll just, expound upon that exponentially, and the Learning Gate community itself would just flourish into something even bigger that I think we can all appreciate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We still have several other people. I did not realize the depth of the presentation. Could we ask for a few more minutes, or are we?
Well, how many other folks are in the audience that wish to speak in support?
Well, at the very least, a lot of people aren't going to necessarily speak, but if they could stand and show their support.
Okay, let the record reflect that there's 50 people, roughly. Is that fair enough? Fair assessment?
Yes, sir.
Stood up in support.
But I guess we're looking at probably maybe 2-3 more people speaking, if that's okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Greg Pierce. I live on Vandervoort Road, 1927 in Lutz, Florida, 33549. And I believe I need to be sworn in.
Okay. Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
Okay, thank you.
So I've lived in Lutz for 7 years, and I moved there so my kids could go to Learning Gate. And I think it's important that you understand what an amazing school it is. It's a place where, like you've heard already, it's nationally recognized. It's really in sync with the environment. And the kids that go there really want to be there. And you know that because the parents have to volunteer. The parents have to spend time in parenting classes as well. So it's not a school where the kids are just dropped off and forget it and they move on. It's a place where people really feel in touch with the community. And I've heard some talk about, in an average school, what the traffic patterns look like and what the water usage looks like. And this is an average school. The reason I know that is, KP duty is usually something that people don't want to do, right? And my son gets excited about it because they have compost piles as opposed to just regular garbage. So he gets to go with his friends over to the compost pile and drop things, and they probably horse around in the garden a little bit while they're over there. But it's an exciting thing to do. Those sort of things show me that this is the sort of school that is not going to have an adverse impact. In fact, it'll raise property values because people want to move to the community to be in a school like this. And it's a school that's shown time and time again that they really want to work with the environment and not against it and make sure that things are fluid. So I hope that you'll support this school.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak in support?
Good evening. Colleen Kruk, 18518 Sunward Lake Place, Lutz. I actually live in Sunset Manor, which is that subdivision that you see completely surrounded by the school. I'm here tonight representing my household. Not everybody in my community and my subdivision agrees with me, but I want to point out some information that I know about this that hasn't been mentioned tonight. Basically, I've lived at my house for 19 years, and I know what the property consists of that Learning Gate is proposing to purchase. I've had an opportunity to see what's on that property, and as a result of that, I nominated the property for purchase by the county under its ELAP program. This property was evaluated by the ecologists that work for the county staff, and it was rated as exceptional relative to habitat and basically everything that it has on the property with wildlife, birds, etc. One of the things that came out that was very clear is that it was going to be an addition to Nye Park, and it would have been an exceptional asset to Nye Park. We would have maybe had some walking paths and been able to walk dogs, etc., and it would have connected to downtown Lutz. The county pursued acquisition of that property, and they were not successful because they couldn't afford to pay the price that was wanted for the property. There's nothing we can do about it. It couldn't be purchased. Preservation is my primary thing. If this gets allowed to be developed as residential, likely what will happen is someone will come in and they will clear cut everything that I see right now, and there will be no restrictions on them. They will be able to build as many houses as they can within zoning restrictions. They'll be able to put up man-made landscape. They'll be able to put up fences, and everything that I've watched all these years will change. The alternative is the school. The biggest problem with this proposal is the traffic. It's not the school. I'm not naive enough to think that that property is going to stay like that forever and never be developed. And I think that this school is a better alternative than having everything clear cut and having other bad runoff run into the wetlands. The county needs to be responsible for whatever traffic issues have to be addressed here. If there's a problem at Sunset and 41, then we need the county to help the community and to make sure that we are still safe. If the county needs to restrict the number of students in this school and phase it in until you can afford to make the improvements that you need to make on those roads, then that's the way this recommendation needs to be worded. She's asking for 1,000 students. I think in the long run she could probably handle it based on what she's been describing with me and what we've been talking about. But the roads will have to be improved, and they'll have to be safe, and the traffic will have to be handled, and the county will have to be willing to do that and work with the school. I think the school will be an asset to Lutz, and I think it's an important thing that we need to consider. But we can't just allow the traffic to go on the roads the way they are right now. If you're going to approve this school, there needs to be a plan, and maybe that plan needs to be phased in as her school grows. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, you need to sign in. Ma'am?
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support? See no one responding. At this point in time, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition? Yes? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sean Holyoke Hohenthaner, 18854 Tracer Drive, Lutz, Florida. And I'm going to talk really quickly because I don't want to take a lot of time. I'm here today opposing the construction of Learning Gate Middle High School. I'm a proud public high school assistant principal. I'm well aware of the impact that a school of this size will have on the community. The high school I work in was a part of a planned subdivision. The communities near and around Sunset are not planned communities, created with the knowledge that a future school would be built with property set aside for and future roadways already designed to adequately manage traffic flow. What you are trying to do is fit a square peg into a round hole. Forcing that square peg will have adverse effect on the community with regard to the delicate wetlands environment, water usage, and traffic flow. I'm here to share what an impact on a school this size will have with regard to water usage, and I am at a school that is considered green. 1,000 students flush toilets on the average of 1,680 times per day at a low flow gallon flush of 2 gallons per flush. That equates to 3,360 gallons of water per day, 16,800 gallons of water per week, and 604,800 gallons of water per school calendar. Let's say 700 students actually choose to wash their hands after using the restroom at a conservative 0.5 gallons per wash. That's 350 gallons per day, 1,750 gallons per week, and 63,000 gallons per school year. The average school cafeteria uses 600 gallons per week and 108,000 gallons per year. This is used to fill warmers, wash dishes, clean floors, and mop and clean off tables. These examples do not cover all water usage, but certainly can paint a picture. Total water usage is 775,800 gallons. I heard that the school will be using an existing well field, but water usage is water usage, and it only comes from one place, our aquifer. There is a prevalence of sinkholes and lutes, and this is a direct result of ground collapse due to water level change by way of water extraction or drought per swift mud. A 2008 Hillsborough County record shows a confirmed 275 sinkholes and lutes, with 56 of those in the Sunset area. Being a Lutz native from a family with nearly a century rooted here, I have a vested interest in beautiful downtown Lutz continuing to thrive. Much of Lutz has remained intact, including the series of fragile lakes and canals that connect through several communities and the array of wildlife that they support. The use of 775,800 gallons of potable water could have a profound effect on the delicate balance of wildlife. We could see our canals dry or significantly lowered. We could see our lakes diminished, and with this comes diminished wildlife and ultimately diminished property values. I am sure that there will be an answer or solution for everything that I've stated here, but the only sure thing is that water will be used at a level this community has never seen or supported, and that will certainly have some negative consequence on the community. I saw that Learning Gate will have one of their academic foci on environmental studies. Please consider this as your first lesson that a facility such as Learning Gate will have an adverse effect on the environment with regard to potable water use. I hope that the request for the construction of the school will be denied and a lesson will have been learned for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. All right, next. Person who wishes to speak in opposition. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is James White. I live at 18401 Autumn Mist Drive, Lutz, Florida, 33549. I'm here today to express my vehement opposition to granting a special use permit for the Learning Gate Middle and High School. Though I share my neighbor's other concerns, my primary concern is the projected significant traffic increase on Sunset Lane. According to their traffic study submitted, Sunset Lane, the entrance on 41 may be being called the main entrance, but according to their statistics, there's actually going to be more in and out traffic off of the Sunset entrance. I've been a professional firefighter paramedic for almost 35 years, and I know danger when I see it. I've also learned that it is much better to prevent it if possible. There are many alternative sites in the Lutz area that are much more appropriate and less negatively impactful as this one. This one is a recipe for disaster and completely avoidable. Sunset Lane is a rural two-lane road which has already been designated by Hillsborough County as a constrained road, which has for some time been operating beyond its design capacity, and which cannot be widened nor significantly improved. By their own traffic projections submitted to you, Learning Gate will add a projected total of 2,517 trip ends daily. Learning Gate's Sunset Lane entrance will increase traffic on Sunset Lane by 38.2% during peak hours and peak season. Now, combined with the traffic from Lutz Learning Center daycare, the increase from existing traffic to projected peak hour peak season is 60%. Learning Gate's proposed Sunset entrance is directly north from the Lutz Learning Center daycare's driveway. 2 months ago, Lutz Learning Center increased their student capacity by 60% without adding an additional parking space or additional driveway. This has resulted in traffic congestion and parking nightmares several times per day. This school complex will only exacerbate that problem. According to Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office records, there have been 31 accidents on Sunset Lane in the last year. Sunset's a 2-lane road, which is barely 3 miles in length and has only 3 significant intersections. Sunset Lane also serves as the main running street for fire, EMS, and law enforcement from both stations serving Lutz east of US 41. To increase its traffic load will result in longer response times and increased danger to residents and motorists, as well as that of responding emergency personnel. The impact that this project will have on the Sunset Lane community is, in fact, in direct conflict with the nature and intent of the Lutz Community Plan. To keep our community, the Sunset Lane community, a quiet rural one with planned development in the downtown area so as not to impact our areas in this manner.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. If I may, there was a recognition of how many people were here in support of it.
Yes.
May I please call for the opposite, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Let your voice be heard.
Okay, let the record reflect that there's not the fair assessment, but there's 60 or so people here in opposition.
Sir, these people, there's one difference, and no one I've talked to has a problem with the school itself. I've heard excellent things about the school. However, these are the people that are impacted by this. The people at the school, they live elsewhere in the county. We're the ones every day that has to battle this. These people right here are impacted. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Good evening.
Hello. Mary Masher, 1004 Sunset Lane. First off, I did not know you could use a public park for private use. As of right now, you're not allowed to. I use the park every day. I have a 2-year-old. We walk down there from the house I built 4 years ago on Lake Keene. I would not have built it if I knew this was coming. I would have built elsewhere. There is a crosswalk about 0.1 miles from my house. I look at it every day. Nobody stops. Never. My child's almost been hit by a car twice because cars aren't paying attention and they swerve this way and then they swerve into my yard where my child's out front with me trying to get in the car, and the impact of 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds driving down that road is not going to make it any better. Living on the lake puts my lake in severe jeopardy due to the runoff into the water, due to the usage of the water. I am an environmental chemist. I did graduate from University of Tampa. I know a lot about water. There is no city water, as we all know. Therefore, all the water that will be used eventually will come from my lake and other people's lakes that are right there. And what happens when the water's gone? Do I have to move because there's no more water because Learning Gate took it all? Does my 2-year-old not get to grow up? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
This is Mr. Gilbert McGee, and I'm Mrs. Betty McGee. And we live at 18516 Sunward Lake Place. Lutz, Florida. We respect and support all concerns about the traffic impact on Sunset Lane and Lutz community as a whole. I also agree with the water. Gil and I have been residents of Sunset Manor for 22 years. Our house backs up to a landscape of magnificent trees and a marsh lake. Water year-round. Imagine standing in my backyard early morning and seeing deer, red-tailed hawks, numerous species of wildlife, and birds starting their day. This unique location in Lutz has an abundance of wildlife, and I don't want to see it destroyed. Now picture stacked cars on two-lane road and a dirt bridge going around and through the pristine forest and that marsh lake in back of my home that I've enjoyed all these years. You imagine oil and gas spills, road runoff, exhaust pollution, noise pollution, and of course litter floating in the water that will take all of this away. And if you want proof of that, just ride along some of our public roads and you'll see the litter. Because the high school's main interest road will be only 100 feet from my property line, it will drastically affect Gil and my quality of life and jeopardize our health due to the continual exhaust and noise pollution, plus the stress this is causing myself and my husband. I greatly appreciate Patty Gerard. I respect her school. I respect her. And I appreciate Patty Gerard working closely with Sunset Manor's Representative Colleen Kirk. Okay, they've worked very hard and very diligent to lower the school's impact to my home and my neighbors. But I feel that 1,000 student schools' environmental damage footprint in the Marsh Lake and the woodlands and the resulting traffic congestion will destroy the Lutz rural community. And again, my and my husband's quality of life and my surrounding neighbors, especially on the part where they're going to run a road right through that lake. I would want to know, how will the county address this and how we'll protect myself and my husband? I would also like to point out that Learning Gate's own mission statement on their website today, environmental responsibility. I question, how can they make this promise when Gates School is so willing to destroy pristine wetlands and wildlife? Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate all of your time, and I appreciate everyone's support.
Ma'am, I need you to sign.
Ma'am, can you please come sign in?
Okay, next person who wishes to speak in opposition.
My name is Lisa Schuler. I reside at 18510 Sunward Lake Place in Lutz, Sunset Manor. Many of these people are my neighbors. I have been to several of the hometown meetings that Patty Gerard has put on, and while they've been greatly appreciated, what we hear from one meeting to the next has been very different. The first meeting that we went to, we were told that the access on Sunset was going to be for emergency vehicles and faculty only. We were also told that the parking lot that nobody wanted to give you a number on today is for 270 parking spaces. Okay? Now today, one of their representatives tells us that it's going to be a roundabout that's going to be able to come through Sunset Lane and up through and drop their students off. This was our main concern and continues to be our concern. I have lived in Lutz since 1992. I have owned 4 homes in Lutz. This by far is our favorite location. It is, my son grew up in Lutz. He's 23 years old today. He played baseball. He played football. What this does to the community is it rips us apart, okay? I have no problem with Patty Gerard and her school. I think the concept is great. My concern is the access on Sunset. The county has to provide an answer for that. It cannot be left to them. That has got to be limited access. Unfortunately, if if the county doesn't get involved and that access is not limited, I'm afraid somewhere somebody is going to get scraped off the road. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? The chime is telling me that there's 15 minutes have been used up. How many more people wish to speak in opposition? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, roughly. All right, I'll allow you all to speak, but please keep in mind what your previous speaker has already said and put on the record. Please try not to repeat testimony that's already been given. So at this point in time, the next person, please. Good evening.
Okay. My name is Gwen Hassinger. I'm a resident of Hillsborough County since
Ma'am, could you move the microphone a little bit closer so they can pick it up?
Closer to me?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm a resident of Hillsborough County since 1974, a resident of Lutz since 1982. This school was named a Green Ribbon School that honors environmental excellence. That program recognizes a school for these things: environmental excellence, saving energy, reducing costs, featuring environmentally sustainable learning space, protecting health, fosters wellness, offers environmental education to boost academic achievement, and to boost community engagement. Well, this community is very engaged right now. Learning Gate is planning several buildings as their school. This takes up a specific large footprint when it is spread over an area rather than one single tall building taking up a specific small footprint. Several buildings would use more energy in security lights, etc., rather than one building. To alter native wetlands and change the drainage patterns from their natural course to drain centrally and down to Sunset Road straight to Lake Stamper increases the water density to floodplain levels beyond what they are now. This would create a flooding hazard to our property and all the properties to the south of this school site. How does this protect health, foster wellness, and environmental education? This is the same for the inverse when there are drought conditions, which we're going into right now. The usage of water by 1,000 students with 2 additional parents, family members, and guests is well over 3,000 people in an environmental area pulling on the water. We have already suffered with our well going dry, and a new well that we put in that cost over $10,000, along with a new septic system, lift station, and drain field that cost over $6,000. If this happens again, will Learning Gate or the members of the zoning board step up to the plate and reimburse us for any future loss perpetuated upon us by Learning Gate by allowing this project to move ahead? Will you give us a new well if it goes dry? Will you give us a new house if it floods? The effluent of students, people, and farm animals will be heading straight for us, along with disease, illness, and a specific lack of environmental excellence. This could change the benchmark for flood insurance. For Learning Gate to maintain their green ribbon status, they need to not build this project in a wetland. They need to, even the federal government has given them the status of award. Maybe they should be notified of the school's deliberate actions to go against everything that they are preaching. Please vote for the denial of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Next person that wishes to speak.
My name's Ellie Hurley. I live at 18509 Lake Keene Drive in Lutz. Lived there since 1999. And we have lived on Lake Keene and seen it dried up. We also have raised 2 children that went to public school, and they were relocated from Gaither to the new school, Freedom. And now we have a new high school, Steinbrenner. Learning Gate, as I understand, is a charter school where children attend based on lottery. It's not necessarily directly related to the community, other than for people that can come in from other locations. The traffic is a concern. Walgreens recently went in on the corner. I don't think any traffic relationship was taken to that. It's a dead zone right there at Winn-Dixie and Walgreens. Seen a number of accidents already. Idlewild Baptist Church went in off of Van Dyke and Dale Mabry. And boy, it's funny how you get nervous up here.
Take your time, it's fine.
And the thing is when Idlewild Baptist Church went in, there was a discussion about which entrance they would use. You see now 7 days a week, and it's a church, it's a good church, I'm not saying anything about that, but the traffic and the relationship. Van Dyke backs up, and so does Dale Mabry. I see the same problem coming on in Sunset. Right now, with the Walgreens backs up, you can't even get home to Sunset, through Sunset, and I live off of Lake Keene Drive. As far as threatening the use of residential development, it has to be taken into consideration with the development and with the wetlands. And the other thing is commercial zoning continues on Sunset, and it's not fair to the residents that do have homes on Sunset. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Next person that wishes to speak in opposition.
Good evening. My name is Donald Hassinger. I live at 18402 Cypress Cove Road in Lutz, and I've been there for 30 years. I also own the property at 18410 Cypress Cove Road in Lutz. And if anybody from Genesis talks about negotiating with me, they never contacted me. I never heard from them. So I don't know what they're talking about, and they made no negotiation efforts with me anyway. And I am directly impacted by this proposed development because I got one of their letters. And for me, the fact of this matter is really quite simple. The project doesn't make any sense. The proposed school is to be built in a wetland with the entrance on Sunset Lane as one of the entrances. Sunset Lane is a very narrow, heavily traveled road. We already have two schools right at the entrance, Lutz Learning Center and Tim's Memorial Presbyterian Preschool. There's already very heavy traffic from these schools and no public transportation. We furthermore have the Lutz Preparatory School and, of course, the Lutz School. Do we really need another school? This could be a prime example of what's wrong with Hillsborough County. That is permitting projects to be built without proper infrastructure. There is no public water source on this property. And worst of all, no sewer. Can you imagine the effluent from over 1,000 people being dumped into the wetlands, with the new runoff draining towards Sunset and then down Cypress Cove Road towards Stemper? Why should anyone living in this area be for this project? Traffic and noise will increase, and our quality of life will be diminished. And here's the best part. We all get to pay for it. All of us and all the citizens of Hillsborough County that pay property taxes are going to be paying for this thing. When the nonprofit organization in Clearwater, the Scientologists, took their property off the tax rolls, they made monetary contributions to the community to help make up the shortfall. And they didn't do any environmental damage. Is this group willing to do the same? I hope so. Will they be paying impact fees? They're certainly going to have an impact. And lastly, together with this school, it's a very fine organization, does very good work, and the students who go there appear to be very well motivated, including the two speakers. However, I think it's a sad state of affairs when the more motivated children and the supposedly good kids abandon the public schools and go to these private schools and charter schools. I think it's a sad day for our public school system. Thank you, and I hope you disapprove this project.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, we have...
Hi, my name is Brian Abrams. I live at 18414 Turning Point Drive. I live right on the corner of Sunset Lane and Turning Point Drive. There are many nights when I try to come home from work and I come down 41, and with the stop sign on Hannah Road, cars are backed up 3 blocks away, a couple of 100 yards, where they can't even get through there. I've seen many times where our lakes have gone dry. I don't think that anybody putting another project that large is going to do anything for our wetlands, or with the problems that we have with lakes today, it's going to get just worse. We're on water restrictions. The county is running out of water. How are we going to let them do this? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sam Calco, 18422 Swan Lake Drive, Lutz, Florida, Windermere subdivision right off of Sunset Lane. Not against the school in any way, shape, or form. However, it is the wrong location at this point, especially with the traffic on Sunset. The road cannot be wide and no turn lanes. It warmed the cockles of my heart when this gentleman over here said they were going to encourage carpooling. That's a grand plan. The point I wanted to make is, by their own admission, only 20 to 25% of the students that go to this current school are from the Lutz area. They're brought in from all over. Another point is, if there's 16 and 17-year-olds driving, maybe there's 200, 250 of them, whatever, the other students still have to get there, so that's still cars. I'm not for the children from Pasco County. They're not from Lutz. They eat bean sprouts and don't have sex. I'm happy for them.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mary Danielitz Bryson, and I live at 18410 Cypress Cove Road. I'm new to the Lutz area. I just moved here in October, and I love my little piece of heaven on earth. One thing that I would like to say, as they stated before, the site is unique. It's very unique. They develop it, it will no longer be unique. There's diverse wildlife. If they develop in the wetlands, that wildlife will go away. How can you teach sustainability when you are affecting wetlands, which is not sustainable? Most acreage is in a conservation easement. US 41 is 6 lanes. Sunset Lane is 2 lanes. 2 lanes. The school site building is 180,000 square feet. That is 4.13 acres. That doesn't include all the drive aisles and everything else that will have to be built to sustain the school. They applied, I checked with EPC today, they have applied for EPC determination. The folio number that they submitted to EPC was 136930. That is the small piece of land where they're putting the road through from US 41. That does not include folio number 136930.0200, which is the 14-acre site that is off of Sunset. They have not applied to EPC, or EPC was not aware of any of the other part of the development. There's 14 acres of wetlands on this site. This site has been vacant for 30 years that I know of. I am an arborist for the city of Tampa, and I review trees, and 5 acres of trees coming out just doesn't sit right with me. And not only that, how many of those trees on that site for over 30 years are grand trees? What kind of impact are you going to have to this site? What are you going to do to the wildlife? This is an ecological travesty, and I do not support it. This site, the development of this site, impacts the roads, and Sunset Lane, I know you've heard time and time again that Sunset Lane is at its capacity. With the development of the Walgreens, I've seen 2 accidents there myself, just with one little Walgreens going at the corner of the street. The road as it currently is developed does not support the traffic that's already on it. Sunset should not be an option for these people for access, period. Not for emergency vehicles, not for any. No access off of Sunset. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I've kept track of, since I last asked, how many people wanted to speak, and I've got 6. And I thought I saw 7 hands up before, so you're number 7. Looking forward.
Good evening. I'm Ed Gardner.
I'm sorry, you
represented
repeat
by-
that?
Excuse me?
Repeat your name.
Ed Gardner.
Ed Gardner, thank you.
18514 Sunward Lake Place, Lutz. My wife and I have lived in the Lutz community for 8 years, both coming from respectively Pebble Creek in New Tampa and West Chase. And we have enjoyed the quiet and scenic community at Sunset Manor for the last 8 years. I'll just be brief. I have a letter that I'll leave with y'all as well, but 2 major points I would say from our letter. We don't need the school. Schools should be built when there are more students in the buildings to accommodate them. It should not be built based on political correctness or because someone else is funding them. There are no free schools. Someone, the taxpayers, are paying for them. We should be spending that money prudently and on things of necessity versus desirability. Second, it seems counterproductive to disrupt and destroy a wetland that is supposed to be preserved to build an environmentally focused school. And since there will be no busing, this screen school will be adding to our pollution problem instead of reducing it. I understand the existing students are excited about the new school. However, it is not their neighborhood that's being impacted. They get to stay in their nice little controlled communities and venture out to my community, polluting it with their traffic, noise, emissions, and runoff, and they go back home and feel good about their green school. Okay. The neighborhoods in this area don't want the school here, and thus we respectfully ask you to protect our interests and vote no.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I've extended the time to accommodate at least 7 additional speakers. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak in opposition? Say one more, gentleman. Okay, please come forward. And after that, we'll turn to staff.
My name's Ed Mead. I live at 18305 Cypress Cove Road. I've listened to all these people's things tonight. I'm not that prepared, but I would like to say 2 things. My main concern is, like they've all said, is the traffic. I've lived at Cypress Cove Road for 40 years, and I had a canal that goes from my house down to Sunset behind the Presbyterian Church. That has completely dried up. It used to stay full. My kids would fish in it. Now it's dried up into it's nothing but a jungle. The whole canal, the church cleaned up their part. Lake Stemper, I have watched dry up, completely dry up. That's the largest lake in Lutz. I watched it dry up twice. They were out riding dirt bikes and 4-wheelers on Lake Stemper, the biggest lake in Lutz. And I wasn't aware of the water situation there, but now I am. So that's a concern. But the traffic, it's gotten to the point I brag all the time. I can pull out on Highway 41 and not see a car in sight in any direction. There's no place in Hillsborough County that you can do that. No place. But Sunset is a different story. They built that Sunset Manor opposite to Cypress Cove Road. I can't hardly get out onto Sunset now to make a left-hand turn because there's constant traffic going one way or the other, and then you have people come out of that subdivision that have no courtesy. They don't wait. You know, you've been sitting there for 10 minutes, and they'll pull right out in front of you. I was just in contact with the county, whatever it is, to try to get also at Sunset and 41, there's a very short left turn lane, very short, and we have a turn light. But the traffic opposing us coming out of the subdivision on the other side will turn in front of you when you've got a green light. And the same thing, there's a turn lane if you're northbound on 41. There's a right turn lane. But if you're headed southbound, you have an advanced green light, and they'll turn in front of you. Just like this lady said, I can't even tell you how many accidents I've witnessed on Sunset and the driveway to Winn-Dixie parking lot, and now that opposing driveway out of Walgreens, and it's not going to get any better. I've counted over 100 cars between Livingston and Cypress Cove Road when I come home. Now, I don't know where they're planning on putting all these cars, and that's my objection. The school sounds wonderful, but unless the county does something about the streets, maybe you could do like Idlewild Baptist Church and furnish, I think they have to pay for them, furnish cops to help direct traffic for all this traffic. I don't know what else you're going to do with it because there's no place for it to go. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. At this point in time, staff, anything further?
Not unless you have questions.
Regarding public water and sewer, are you aware of any available public water or sewer lines in the vicinity of the subject site?
I checked prior to the hearing. Our GIS map showed what appeared to be a water line. There wasn't any sewer, although the water line, it seemed like it was just a very small line serving just immediate surrounding areas. This is in the rural service area, therefore it is supposed to be served by private well and septic. There are provisions in the Land Development Code for property owner to seek for extension of utilities into the rural service area based on environmental impacts or concerns. So there's that opportunity, but as it stands right now, service will be provided by a well and septic.
Okay. And if you know this stormwater concerns, how are stormwater concerns addressed?
If this application were approved during the site development review, they would have to model based on the drainage in the area and the drainage characteristics out there, based on existing characteristics, and design the stormwater ponds to capture and treat that stormwater on site so as to not cause any off-site flooding of adjacent property. So they basically have to do modeling. There's technical manuals and modeling requirements they have to provide, and that were reviewed by our technical staff during that review process.
Okay. I heard several times throughout tonight's testimony that the property, the wetlands on the site are in conservation easements. Is that just a sort of, word of art, or are we talking about legal conservation?
I think you'd have to ask the applicant to respond to that, because I can't respond to that particular issue about whether or not those wetlands are in conservation easements. Obviously, they're conservation areas, but certainly through Environmental Protection Commission, you can't petition to impact those wetlands through that review process.
Okay. All right. Planning Commission, anything further? Okay. At this point in time, the applicant has an opportunity for rebuttal.
Thank you, sir. I'm Kevin Menier, again from the Genesis Group, and I've brought my entire team up here. Whatever questions that you might have, they can answer. Just a couple of different things. Something will go on this site. It is approved for residential and agricultural uses today. There's 40-plus acres of upland acreage today. Of all the different uses that you can put on this site, this is going to be the most sensitive. There will be a couple of small impacts to a couple of wetland areas. The reason for those impacts were as a result of direct negotiations with the neighbors to push that street, that access road, as far away as possible from any of the residences. We've met with EPC. We have a tentative approval. We fully understand that we're going to need a full approval before we get it approved.
Could you elaborate on what you did meet with EPC about?
Yeah.
John Gibbons, 201 East Kennedy Boulevard, Tampa 33602. Yes, we met with the EPC staff. We went over the site plans and the possible plans. The current site plan has total wetland impact of 0.7 acres, so less than an acre of impact. We have discussed with them at length mitigation for those impacts, increasing the size of several wetlands on site, enhancing those wetlands, and also the issue of conservation easements for the wetland areas so they can never be impacted again. And all of that was in discussion with the EPC, and they were on board for this project, and felt that the amount of impact was small given the benefit of the project.
Okay. And just to clarify for the record, the term of conservation easement has been used multiple times tonight, these wetlands on the site, we're not at that stage. They're not in.
No, they are not in conservation easements at this point.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Steve Henry with Links and Associates. Just want to address the traffic very quickly. This project's unique in that the improvements that they are proposing to do and the conditions that are imposed upon them. One is the staggered hours. Again, when we discussed this previously, that the school students will arrive outside the peak hour and will leave outside the PM peak hour. So from that standpoint, we've been able to utilize the arrivals and departures outside the peak hours. In addition to that, unlike most schools that arrive at a certain time and leave, we've staggered those hours to help, again, minimize the traffic impact. In addition to that, as far as queuing, we have over 1,200 feet of queuing from Sunset Lane to the drop-off. We have more than double that from US 41 to the drop-off. In addition to that, we're providing left turn lane on Sunset Lane and right turn lane into the project access on Sunset Lane. The other projects they speak about don't have those turn lanes. So we have been able to mitigate the impact by providing turn lanes and providing more than sufficient queuing on site. So from that standpoint, we think that we have been able to mitigate it through the use of staggered hours and also the improvements that we're doing.
If you could briefly address, there's a comment about US 41 Sunset Lane intersection. You know what the current level of service is, and you know what the level of service will be with project traffic?
The current level of service with our traffic is E at that intersection based on analysis. It will continue to be E with the project. Again, and then during the PM peak hour, it's level of service D, existing, and actually I take that back. When I say existing, the level of service E is based on not only our traffic, but also we added in the Lutz Learning Center that is more than almost doubling in size. We've added their traffic on top of that, and it's, again, with all that traffic, it's E. We won't change the level of service of that overall intersection, which is level of service E, and again, in the PM peak hour, it's D.
Do you have any response, comment to the testimony you've heard from those in opposition about what the split in traffic will be between folks that use the US 41 driveway versus the folks that use the Sunset Lane driveway?
One of the things that we will do as a part of, again, as a condition, we have to submit a traffic circulation plan. Based on the distribution that we had, the predominant amount of traffic was using Sunset Lane without any restrictions. We can certainly work with staff, work with the applicant on what kind of traffic distribution there may be. But even with that, we looked at a worst case, unrestricted, and what was the impact. And based on that, that's where the turn lanes and the queuing and everything else was evaluated.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add one thing, John Gibbons again. This traffic problem doesn't come as a surprise tonight. It's been an issue since this was first filed. We've had numerous meetings with county staff regarding this issue. We have tried different plans, and we seized upon one which the staff found acceptable and found didn't adversely impact the current level of service. As you heard from Mr. Henry, as you know, this project meets all of the elements of every land use plan, and we feel that we've demonstrated our willingness to work with the staff and our willingness to make sure that this does not adversely impact the area. And you've heard from the professional engineer regarding this. You have the county staff report, and we would ask you to approve it based on the substantial competent evidence that you have. Thank you.
Does that conclude your rebuttal?
Ms. Kevin has.
Just one last thing. There was some issue about the kids don't come from Lutz. We've spoken with Miss Patty, and she commits that she runs the boat. She runs the show. and she is committed that first chance will be kids from, sorry.
It's in our charter that we will only accept kids from Hillsborough, except for those kids that are presently with us. We will not accept kids out of Hillsborough County, and also we will give first choice to the Lutz residents' children. That's in our charter.
Thank you, sir. Unless you have any other questions.
We're good with